Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to this sad yet happy event in memory of my wife Judy, who personally selected some of the sounds and pictures she wanted to share with you on this special occasion. Remarkably, she remained physically active and mentally positive throughout all her years of treatment. Until quite recently, she was daily smoothing on Boots No. 7 cream, followed by a spray or two of Chanel No. 5 and a well-practiced application of lipstick, known in Liverpool as Lippy, by the way. Making up has always been her morning ritual, no matter what the circumstances. A habit of a lifetime phoned to perfection since her early years in the theatre. Indeed, I've never known my wife to leave home without first making up and dressing in style, even if it was only to go traipsing round charity shops in search of the odd bargain, or principally the antique blue china she was so fond of. For many, she was down-to-earth elegance personified, unassumingly cultured and always gentle and kind in her approach to life. And I, like everyone who knew her, shall miss her dearly. Instead of a traditional Victorian-style funeral, Judy asked me, in fact she told me, to organise a fundraising event in aid of the Hope for the Future charity that operates the mobile cancer unit which comes to Gillingham every Wednesday and Friday throughout the year. Indeed, earlier this year, Judy was busy organising a raffle and selling tickets along with local hairdresser Ali, who initiated the idea of supporting this good cause in the first place. All credit should go to Ali, said Judy. Make it a remembrance event with a tea party in the village hall. During the last week of her life, Judy died in the early hours of the 12th of July. She had been under the care of the Gillingham Community Nursing Team. She had previously told her oncologist she wanted to remain at home for as long as possible before being admitted into one of the Weldmar hospice wards within the local cottage hospital in Shaftesbury, because several of her friends had spent their last days there. She also insisted that she did not want a funeral. However, her condition worsened to such an extent that the hospice had to come to her. A special bed, along with all the medical equipment and drugs needed to deal with any and every eventuality, were quickly installed in the downstairs garden room. And in due course, her specific alternative funeral instructions were acted upon, according to her last wishes. Judy had been living with cancer for more than 12 years and would never have survived those hopeful years without the wonderful care and support of the undeservedly much maligned NHS, and for that I will always be grateful. So, on your behalf, this is my personal tribute to her. It's a story that goes back some 64 years or so. We met in the old Argyle Theatre in Birkenhead, Merseyside, when I joined the cast of a touring production of Alice in Wonderland during a brief tenure as an actor. Judy played Alice, and I was the White Rabbit. I think I only got the part because they wanted a piano-playing rabbit to top and tail the production with a song from the cast. This 9-month tour was immediately followed by another in which I played David Copperfield to Judy's little Emily. Eventually, we married in December 1960. Our fairy tale wedding took place in St Mary Abbott's Church on Kensington High Street in London, where we lived. When the vicar announced the joining in matrimony of Francis and Sylvia, our official names, heads were turned as our showbiz guests, who only knew us as Judy and Jeff, they thought they were at the wrong do. Since then, we've lived at some 28 different addresses over the years, some of them for just weeks or months at the time, in early days, depending on cash flow. Eventually, we moved to Spain, where we lived for 11 and a half years, hence our half-Spanish grandchildren. When we returned to the UK in 1995, we settled in Motcombe, and we were still here 27 years later, as Judy said, because of the people that live here. Judy, whose grandparents were Cornish, was born in Bournemouth, where she attended Queen's Mount Boarding School for Girls. However, her heart was set on the stage, much to the consternation of her parents and her tutors. A neighbour told her mother that she thought Judy was an existentialist. I don't think her mother would have understood that, but she did sense her somewhat flamboyant daughter was somehow different, as she loved performing. When she was a teenager, Judy was awarded a scholarship by Associated Rediffusion, one of the independent commercial television corporations in the 1950s. Consequently, she was enrolled in LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, their youngest student ever. She made her first professional debut at Bournemouth's Palace Court Theatre, along with a young Sheila Hancock in 1953. When Kodak launched their new Polaroid instant camera to the British market, Judy was chosen to pose for a series of pictures which were passed around during a photographic trade demonstration in London. She was also widely featured in Picture Post, a popular national weekly magazine. She did some repertory play acting and then went on to join the cast of Emergency Ward 10, the first TV hospital soap opera in which she played an Irish nurse. She inherited her smiling eyes and black hair from her Irish grandfather. Indeed, she was my cute little dark-eyed Colleen for 64 years. In those early days of TV, yellow coats and uniforms were worn to appear white on the screen, while those taking part were heavily made up like characters in the old silent movies. She made several appearances with the stars of such television shows as the popular Life with the Lions series, starring Hollywood's Bebe Daniels and Ben Lyon, along with their adopted children Richard and Barbara, who eventually attained success as a pop singer in her own right, some might recall. Judy also appeared in comedy sketches with Tony Hancock and Sid James. There were TV appearances with Stanley Baxter and Betty Marsden, Marion Ryan, Jess Conrad and crooner of the day Ronnie Carroll and such like. Long gone TV shows and entertainers largely forgotten today. Way back then in post-war Britain, Judy was taking her first tentative steps in the world of show business. She was on the way up. However, during the era of Britain's swinging 60s, those steps began to falter, and for good reason. Back in 1956, Judy, as a pregnant teenager, having been abandoned by the father of the child and unbelievably disowned by her own parents, had no choice in the matter. There was no support from the government and certainly no state benefits. There was no alternative. She had to offer her son up for adoption. After nursing her child in hospital isolation for just 2 weeks, she washed and dressed him for the very last time before handing him over, vowing out loud they would be together again one day, little realizing, very much against the odds, that it would be 40 years before that day dawned. Nonetheless, in a more enlightened Britain in 1996, together Judy and I intensified her previously lonely search. Legislation had now changed dramatically, and eventually both mother and son were joyfully reunited in a hotel just up the road from here in Shaftesbury. Until a few weeks ago, Judy had been delivering the Villager news sheet in her corner of Motcombe for 25 years. Few people know of her lifelong commitment to charitable causes and animal welfare, those who can't speak for themselves, a devotion we have always shared. For example, working voluntarily under the auspices of the local council for years, Judy taught English as a foreign language in and around Shaftesbury and Gillingham. Additionally, she freely gave of her time and coached boys with their communication skills who were employed at the Thorngrove Garden establishment. And on the odd occasion now and again, she encouraged privately a courageous minority of regretful pensioners who had never learned to read properly. For 2 years together, we recorded press reports and described pictures published in local newspapers for the Talking Books Charity for the Blind. Typically, Judy never talked about her charitable endeavours to anyone. Today there are 2 children, Naomi and Andrew, 4 grandchildren, 2 of which are half Spanish, and 2 great-grandchildren of part Punjab and Nigerian heritage in our family. And having been born in the melting pot of the transatlantic port of Liverpool myself, I am of Greek and Irish extraction. Like a growing number of other families around the world, the Unwin clan is a truly united nation of a family whose love transcends ancient religious demarcations and racially motivated nationalism. Given the state of the world today, Judy and I often shared our worries and anxieties about what the future might hold for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. However, there is a burgeoning hope on the horizon, and that hope lies with the adults of tomorrow, today's innocent, freedom-loving children everywhere. A song from fellow Scouser Ken Dodd says it all.
Hello world of yesterday, we're looking out to find a way for the children.
For the children.
With a happy song and a happy face, we can make this world a better place for the children.
For the children.
If all the nations join and sing, the bells around the world will ring for the children.
For the children.
And what we have we'd like to share and show you all that the children care for the children.
For the children.
And we're singing out around the world to every other boy and girl. We're holding hands and reaching out to all of you. you're yellow, black or white. Children of the world unite, keep the candle burning bright. Hold my hand if you're yellow, black or white. Though the ocean may seem wide, we can always reach to the other side for the children.
For the children.
We can send our love, we can send some smiles, send love and peace 1,000 miles to the children.
To the children.
We shall be their guiding light and sing along into the night for the children.
For the children.
What a wonderful place this world would stay if we all held hands each and every day like the children.
Like the children.
And we're singing out around the world to every other boy and girl. We're holding hands and reaching out to all of you. Hold my hand, hold it tight. Hold my hand if you're yellow, black or white. Children of the world unite, keep the candle burning bright. Hold my hand if you're yellow, black or white. Hold my hand, hold it tight. Hold my hand if you're yellow, black or white. Children of the world unite, keep the candle burning bright. Hold my hand if you're yellow, black or white. Hold my hand if you're yellow, black or white.
After a lifetime's interest in mankind's interminable search for at least some glimmer of understanding the spontaneous birth of all human life, and unconditionally accepting its inevitable end, Judy and I took a pragmatic approach to the sometimes painful truth of reality. During the final minutes of her now painless and peaceful life, Judy said to me plaintively, "I don't know how to die. What do I do?" It was heartbreaking. Throughout her life, she simply oozed empathy, always thinking of others, even right up until the end when she said to me, "This must be terrible for you. You're a good cook, Jeff. Look after yourself." Later, she said, "There's someone standing outside in the garden, looking at me through the window. He's been before and told me he was waiting for me and he would come again to take me away." "Is he there now?" "Yes, he is. No, it's not a man. It's a great big bird. Well, it's a half bird and half man. When he stands in the middle of the garden and stretches his wings out, there's a very bright light, not a spiritual light, it's just very light. He doesn't flap his wings, he just rises and fades away. Where will he take you, do you think?" "I don't know. To where I came from before I was born, I suppose." "Where is that?" "It's nowhere." Through the tears, I recalled William Shakespeare's definition of life and death. To be or not to be, that is the question. Shortly afterwards, my wife, wonderful wife, Judy, had breathed her last. She had been dreaming of the ballet, The Firebird. In conclusion, I'd like to read some lines from an old Irish poem intended for those who mourn. "I could not stay another day, to love, to laugh, to work or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. My life's been full. I've savoured much. Good times, good friends, a loved one's touch. Do not be burdened with tears of sorrow. Enjoy the sunshine of tomorrow. And now once again, I turn to my fellow Scouser, Ken Dodd, to round off this tribute with a live performance of a fitting song that ends with the usual time-honoured round of applause to which you are invited to join in before enjoying Judy's tea party.
The time has come to say goodnight, for every road must end. To the ones who care and are always there, our very special friend. Let's raise our hands to absent friends, for every road must end. You'll always be there in our hearts, our special absent friend. As we go down the road of life, sometimes we race too fast, and as we chase the future bright, we can't forget the past. Let's raise our hands to absent friends, for every road must end. They'll always be there in our hearts, our special absent friend. Let's raise our hands to absent friends, for every road must end. You'll always be there in our hearts, our special absent friend. You'll always be there in our hearts, our special absent friend.